Picture this. You're walking down the aisle, right? You're surrounded by your loved ones, wearing white, holding a beautiful bouquet, and you're just ready to take part in some of our culture's most cherished and joyful traditions. But what if I told you that the innocent customs we celebrate today are actually rooted in fear, ancient curses, and honestly, some truly dark historical realities? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the beautiful veil on wedding traditions and explore their eerie, highly superstitious, and sometimes downright terrifying origins. And to set the mood perfectly, we're going to start with a famous and deeply cursed artifact.
So this chilling quote describes the infamous wedding dress of Anna Baker. And yes, it's a very real physical item that's currently sitting in a museum in Altoona, Pennsylvania. The legend surrounding this 19th century gown is so enduring and so undeniably spooky that it actually inspired a fictional cursed artifact in the hit sci-fi TV show Warehouse 13. But the real story behind this dress? It's a tragic tale of forbidden love, intense paternal obstinacy, and a curse that has seemingly survived for well over a century.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the haunted wedding dress. To really understand the curse, we have to understand the absolute heartbreak that created it. So, the year is 1849. Elias Baker is this immensely wealthy, powerful iron magnate who fully expects his daughter, Anna, to marry within their elite social circle. But Anna, well, she falls deeply in love with a poor steelworker named Eliab Weatherby. They actually plan a wedding in secret, and Anna purchases this absolutely beautiful dress. But Elias discovers the plot. And he doesn't just forbid the marriage. No, he literally buys the steel mill where Eliab works just to force the young man to move to a completely different city. Utterly heartbroken, Anna turns down every single other suitor, locks herself away, and eventually dies an old maid decades later in 1914.
But, as you might guess, the story doesn't end with Anna's death. Because that wedding dress she bought in secret, it was never actually worn by her. Instead, it was worn by a local wealthy woman named Elizabeth Dessart, and then it was carefully preserved. According to the legend, all of Anna's despair, her anger, her unrequited love, it all manifested inside the fabric of that unworn dress. Today, the dress is kept in a glass display case at the Baker Mansion Museum. And get this, visitors and staff constantly report feeling this eerie presence, seeing ghostly figures in white, and experiencing inexplicable bad luck after getting too close to it. But the most chilling part of all? The dress is frequently said to sway and move inside its sealed glass case, almost as if the frustrated bride is finally trying it on.
Moving right along to Section 2, Decoding Bridal Colors.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how, historically, picking the color of your bridal gown was a deadly serious matter. I mean, before modern medicine, people relied heavily on superstitions to guarantee happiness and fertility in a new marriage. And the historical color meanings differ dramatically from how we view them today. White, of course, symbolized innocence, and blue meant fidelity. But for Victorian brides, pink was terrible luck. They literally had a saying, "Marry in pink and your fortunes will sink." And green? Absolutely taboo. Green was considered the color of the fairies. It was heavily believed that wearing it would call the attention of the little folk during a vulnerable time, angering them and bringing bad luck, or even causing rain to completely ruin the big day. Oh, and black, naturally, was totally banned due to its strong association with death.
Which brings us to Section 3, old, new, borrowed, and blue. So did you follow this custom yourself at your own wedding? This famous rhyme actually first popped up in an 1871 English magazine. We totally view it today as a cute little checklist, but its origins are surprisingly creepy. Let's break it down. Step 1, something old wasn't just about honoring your grandma. It was literally a talisman to scare off the evil eye, which was a malicious glare believed to cause infertility. Step 2, something new brought optimism for the future. Step 3, something borrowed. Okay, this is where it gets wild. Today, you might borrow a necklace, right? But historically, you were supposed to borrow the undergarments of a happily married woman who already had children. The belief was that her fertility would magically transfer to the new bride through the underwear. Yuck. Step 4, blue was to prove fidelity. And finally, Step 5, a silver sixpence in her shoe. This part often gets left out today, but it was specifically meant to ward off evil magic from angry, jilted ex-suitors who might want to curse the marriage.
Let's move on to Section 4, Escaping the Wedding Mob. If you've ever been to a wedding, you've probably seen the bride throw her bouquet. It's a fun game to predict who gets married next, right? Well, it actually started as a terrifying escape tactic. Back in medieval times, a bride's dress was considered a literal fertility charm. Guests fully believed that if they could just get a little piece of it, they'd have good luck. So after the ceremony, the single women and guests would literally chase the bride down and try to rip her dress to shreds. Leaving her in actual tatters. To escape this unruly mob with her dress and, her dignity intact, the bride began throwing her bouquet as a perishable distraction. It was literally just a way to allow her to make a run for the wedding chamber.
And hey, that brings us right to the garter toss. Once the terrified bride and her groom finally made it into the relative safety of their wedding chamber, the mob of guests would often just stand right outside the door, waiting. They were super impatient for proof that the marriage was actually consummated. So the groom would just crack open the door and literally toss out the bride's garter to the throngs of people. It was a clear, undeniable signal that he was about to seal the deal, and frankly, it was the only way to get the mob to finally leave them alone.
Now for our final section, Section 5. Avoiding bad luck.
Let's look at how couples tried to avoid bad business deals and evil spirits, starting with the veil. So the crucial point here is that historical marriages were rarely about love. They were serious business transactions between two families. The veil wasn't about looking ethereal or modest. No, it was a literal blindfold. You see, fathers were absolutely terrified that if the groom saw the bride before the ceremony and found her unattractive, he would just call off the incredibly lucrative business deal, bringing immense shame to the family. The veil kept her face completely hidden until the very end of the ceremony, when the deal was already done and it was way too late for the groom to back out.
And what about carrying the bride over the threshold of their new home? Today, we see it as peak romance. But historically, it was entirely about spiritual warfare and social modesty. In ancient cultures, it was widely believed that evil spirits lurked in the floorboards of a home's entrance, and a new bride was considered particularly vulnerable to absorbing them right through the soles of her feet. So the groom carried her to keep her safe. Furthermore, in medieval Europe, it was considered highly scandalous for a woman to show any enthusiasm whatsoever about losing her virginity. By carrying her, she completely avoided looking too eager to run into the bedroom.
Finally, let's talk about the cake. Many couples today freeze the top tier of their wedding cake to eat on their first anniversary. But originally, that top tier was meant for something else entirely. Remember the old rhyme, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a baby in a baby carriage? Well, historically, that baby was expected to come immediately. The top tier wasn't for an anniversary at all. It was baked specifically to be saved for the christening of the couple's first child, which everyone just assumed would happen within the very first year of marriage. So, from fighting off mobs for your dress, to wearing magical undergarments, to warding off fairies and floorboard demons, it's pretty clear that the beautiful, polished weddings of today are actually built on a foundation of deep historical anxieties and superstitions. We still act out these rituals, even if we've completely forgotten exactly why we're doing them. Which brings us all the way back to Altoona, Pennsylvania, and that cursed garment that started this whole explainer. Knowing what you know now about the powerful emotions and the deep superstitions woven into wedding history, would you be brave enough to try on Anna Baker's haunted wedding dress? I'll let you think about that one. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the traditions around you.